Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and today I would like to share with you guys my final thoughts on the American Blade Works Model 2. Now this is Model 2 version 1, I'm assuming. That's the way that American Blade Works kind of does his stuff when it comes to releasing a knife, and over time, within a year's time span, there'll probably be a second and third variation of this knife that could be different scale material, and this design actually allows for future, I guess, modifications in the way of scale options and things like that, because this is milled out on both sides to accommodate some steel liners. Now there are a couple of people out there currently in the hobby that aren't the biggest fan of having essentially full length zero weight relief on the steel liners. There are ways around it, definitely, but this is again the first version of this knife, and there are a lot of things that I have to say about this. So do I recommend it? I definitely do, actually. I've very much enjoyed having this. There were a couple little hiccups in my experience with this. I actually had to return the first unit that I got, and the maker corrected it completely, and I'm very happy and thankful for that. Right now, let's get the weight on this guy. The price on this is around $330, I believe. They're not in stock, unfortunately, right now, but I'm sure another batch is already in the works. So 4.8, 4.9 ounces. Doesn't feel super brickish, but it definitely feels quite substantial and solid. Let's do some size comparisons, get that nice and centered. I'm gonna start off with the Wii Praxis. The Demco 80-20.5, definitely sharing a lot of similarities in the sense of the shape and materials that they use. Demco has a little bit of belly. This is definitely a straight edge, and there are a good bit of benefit to that, at least in my opinion. This is definitely a workhorse and a good premium replacement for something like a utility blade. Here we have the Spyderco PM2 and the beautiful Native 5. So let's do two more here. The Urban EDC F5.5. Again, that sheep's foot kind of blade, just a little bit shorter, has a little bit of belly versus straight. And then here a classic, the Benchmade Bug Out. So I would say that this is a full-size knife, a very comfortable full-size knife. It's not something that I think a lot of people would have a cumbersome time with. It is very comfortable, super ergonomic. You can rest on this area up here, up on the flipper tab, but if you have thicker fingers, just be a little careful, because that edge does come down right there and you could nick yourself a little bit. So I would say do it at your own risk and if you're comfortable with it, but definitely this thing is going to shine in a standard grip. There is some jimping back here, very light. It matches up with some jimping on the spine, I'm assuming just for decorative purposes. Let's go through some of the materials that they're using here. So blade, it is a CNC milled blade with a semi-polished stone wash over. So that's where those little lines come from. I think that's very beautiful. If you run your nail up and down, you can feel it just the tiny little bit, but it's not like what you would typically feel on like it's just a straight off the belt satin finish. So definitely a little bit more premium finish on this for sure. The scales are, of course, as I mentioned before, titanium. You have a little titanium back spacer and popsicle styled titanium milled clip with wonderful retention. Now I did actually have to bow the clip a little bit because in thinner pant material, for at least in my place of work, I could use jeans if I want to, but it's been so freaking hot, they just become glued to me and a little uncomfortable, honestly. So I've been wearing something closer related to a sports slack kind of material at work, and I guess the seam of the pocket was just so freaking thin. There was almost zero retention with this in there. I'm bending over and squatting a lot, and this thing almost slipped out a couple times. So once I noticed that, I got home, bowed it just a little bit. You can't even really notice it. Of course, no damage occurred or anything crazy like that. It was a very easy, simple process. Just remove it. You need T7 bits, and I believe the pivot is a T15. We can go ahead and check real quick. Just want to make sure I'm getting that right. Have my little Weehaw bits here. Let's see which one. I think this is it. This is a T10. No, that's not it. T15. Let's check it out. Yep, it is a T15. There's that. So yeah, a little weird when it comes to the hardware, not proprietary at all. It's still, you know, a Torx bit shape, but you can't really do on-the-go maintenance with this unless you have your own customized kind of like little bit set that you carry with you. I have the little, and I don't even have it with me right now, wish I could show you guys, but I have the little key bit, like keychain one from Civivi. That one's awesome. That's a daily carry for me. And the NAFSCO leather strap, those two would be a perfect pair for this, but I can't do any on-the-go maintenance on this thing, and that's not really that big of a deal because once this thing is all nicely tuned and everything is snugged up, you really shouldn't be messing with the hardware much anyway. But there are some times where on certain knives, like it tends to happen with my f5.5 a lot, this knife has seen a lot of use, and I genuinely love and enjoy using this knife at work. But even after putting some Loctite on it, sometimes the pivot does kind of back out a little bit. This is all T8 everywhere. This is what I would consider a perfect knife to, you know, to own for sure. So it is definitely a good benefit to have more common hardware, but it's still a little cool fun fact about this. So T7, not that big of a deal, but it's just something to note. You have the same amount of, I guess, jimping back here, and you don't really feel it. It's not super sharp or grabby. It does protrude just a little bit past the actual scales. That's a cool little feature right there. This knife is ridiculously easy to take apart and maintain. You do have a captured pivot. It is flat right there up at the top. You can see right there, nicely milled in. That's not laser etched, that's actually milled. It's very nice. ABW, super cool. And then here in the back, made in USA, which is absolutely wonderful. On the blade, you have Magna Cut here. That is laser etched in there, or acid etched, whatever the proper term is. The way that the blade is heat treated, it is absolutely incredible. It feels extremely hard when I go to sharpen it, and I've actually had to sharpen this already because when I got this unit back from the maker, I went to town on this thing. I went through as many boxes as I could, and I don't own calipers, but I would say the blade stock thickness is just a hair thicker than an average pocket knife. Let's see, we can do, I guess we could do this. So the Demco right here, f5.5, not like the full-size ones, but it's pretty much the same, maybe just a hair larger. Let's do PM2. Yeah, about the same as that, but they thin out quite a bit. So definitely the PM2 is not a hard use knife. I don't care what you say, that's not a hard use knife. It is a ridiculous slicer of a knife, but not a hard use one. This one, because of the shape, how it's ground, flat ground of course, this is an absolute cardboard demolisher. Like, I have so much confidence using this thing now. One of the little issues that I had with this, and a lot of other people encountered on the last batch of this, was that there was some issues with lockup, and a lot of people, what their solution would be is to just disassemble, push over the liner a little bit over to the right, and that would solve the problem for a lot of people. But what that would cause, either you'd have lock stick, or now the actual liner itself, which there is a little bit of texturing, it's not super sharp or anything, but it would just be a little sharper, a little bit more uncomfortable, and just not as fidgety. You do have, you know, another little thing that a lot of people aren't really the biggest fan of is the detail on this is very late. It's right about, hold on, where is it? It's right about there. So you gotta push past it. There's a detent ramp, and I've had this long enough to where I could say that it's almost broken in. I'm sure it just needs a little bit more time, but if you disengage, if you interact with the actual liner itself further down here than in the middle or up here, it's a whole lot easier, because then you can get past that detent ramp and ball, and it falls just like really any other knife. So that's how I've been interacting with this, and it's honestly quite satisfying. It's super glossy smooth, and as I mentioned before, very easy to maintain. This is running on steel cage ceramic. I believe they're ceramic bearings. I'm not 100% sure, but they are bearings. Extremely smooth, and just the tooling and machining and the fit and finish on this specific variation of this knife. And I say that because the first version that I got, there were a couple little things that I noticed. It almost seemed like the batch that was made to be taken to the most recent Blade show this year, they were rushed, absolutely rushed. I can see the difference between the one I had previously, which was a model that was purchased by Eric, I believe is his name, that runs nafsale.com. Wonderful online retailer. You could, you know, buy and sell. I sell a lot of my stuff on there, and it's a very easy, super streamlined process. I hope one day they actually become an app, because I think that'd be it would definitely be a little easier if NAFSA was an app, because it would just be easier overall just to interact with it. But there are a couple knives that I want to bring to the table just to kind of give you guys where this is on the spectrum of American made production knives. Now, one of the biggest key differences between what I'm going to show you guys and what this is here, this is what I would consider essentially a custom made knife. It's one guy, it's a one-man operation. As far as I know, he may have a person or two helping him or not. I'm not 100% sure. But again, small batch, relatively young company, not having a whole lot of, it's just not mass produced. So let's get a couple things out here. I'm sure you guys would have already expected this. A couple of people have already shown these two off together. This is the TRM 3 Rivers Manufacturing Atom. This is the large one. And then we have also this guy up here. Now this, you can't get this exactly how it is at the moment, but this is the full-size Doug Ritter RSK. This one's in Magna Cut, same as this guy. I believe the heat treatment is the same on those two. This is in 20 CV, but I was told that TRM is going to be using Magna Cut from now on, and their heat treatment process is about on the same level. So I would say that all three of these knives are pretty close together on the spectrum of full US production, crazy high quality tolerance having knives that are actually at a reasonable price. But the cheapest one here is the American Blade Works one. There are a couple differences, right? The TRM, it's titanium, practically everything. There are a couple little steel components, I believe, but nothing that like will actually add a significant amount of weight. There are liners to this, but they are titanium liners, so that's where some of the cost goes. This has steel liners, so there's that. Some people argue wear and tear and solidity over time. I haven't owned these knives long enough to be able to, you know, give a definitive answer to that or give my 2 cents on that, so I don't. I believe if something is manufactured well enough that you wouldn't really see much of a difference. It's just the price and materials being utilized to, you know, make the finished product. And then this, it has some original goat tie scales. This had the beautifully milled carbon fiber scales on it originally, but these are all close to the same size. The pricing on all of these, so this brand new would be a little bit more affordable. I think it was like $210 for this when it came out. Now new Doug Ritter knives are all going to be in Magna Cut, which is super freaking sweet, but they're just not going to be offered with those special carbon fiber scales. So I will actually be selling my carbon fiber scales if anyone's interested. I haven't really figured out a justifiable price, so that's probably also going to go on AF sale. Yeah, there's a couple things I'm going to be plucking from the collection because I have, you know, other projects and other hobbies that need funds. But yeah, this is kind of where things are at. This is super, and it falls in line like this in the way I see it and what I have out of my collection. This is super robust, hard use, right? Extremely fidgety. This is a little bit more refined, a little bit more premium looking, performs just as good, honestly, different blade shape, a little bit smaller, more compact, a whole lot more manageable. And this is extremely fine. This is a gent carry. This is a nicer outing kind of knife. Now, it's not to say that this can't be used like the other ones are, but you know, just based off of the stock thickness and all of these guys, based on the stock thickness of all these guys, there's a clear difference between, you know, what is meant to be used hard and what isn't. I mean, just take a look at that, right? Now this and this, right? The TRM almost disappears in a way. So clearly this is not meant to be used hard. So I will say that the American Blade Works Model 2 has got to be, at the moment within this hobby, the most amount of American production knife. Like, it's just the best one right now. There really isn't anything else that's like it. There really isn't anything else that could genuinely compete with it. That's just my opinion. Sure, there are a couple little things, you know, wrong with it, but the way that the company works, most likely by the version 2, maybe 3, this is going to be what a lot of people would consider a perfect knife. And the price, I doubt would even go up that much anyway. So I'm definitely rooting for this company. I'm very happy to have this in the collection. This might stick around, this might not. I'm not 100% sure. I would love to do some finishing work to this, but I still have other things that I'm, you know, considering moving. This might be one of them. Again, I'm not 100% sure. Things don't typically stick around, you know, too long in my collection, unfortunately, because I don't have a whole lot of disposable income, and I do have other expensive hobbies like my snakes and my plants and other things like that. So there's that. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, go ahead and leave a like, leave your comments. Let me know if you guys have any of these knives or any of the comparison knives that I had within this spectrum of a beautiful American made knives. If you are subscribed, I most definitely appreciate you and all your patience, of course. With that being said, have a wonderful rest of your day.